Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Divers Ready, coming to you this week from the dive locker, which is in a state of complete disarray as I'm packing up all of my stuff to head to Rebreather 4-4. So there's dive gear here, which is sopping wet and still drying, some dive gear packed over there, more dive gear packed over there, that's another 50 pounds luggage. My briefcase for all my essentials hasn't been packed yet, I haven't packed my camera gear yet. It's a complete and utter mess. But I figured, well, what video can I make while my studio is in such disarray? It's been a while since I answered your questions. So let's dive in to a dive instructor Q&A. So a lot of questions came from last week's video where I showed you my upgraded beast mode Saver Dive kit, S.A.D kit. And a lot of those questions were functioned around, it's a bit much, isn't it, James? It's a bit too much. It's probably quite heavy. There's a lot of stuff. Are you really dragging that off on a liveaboard trip with you? No. The answer is no, absolutely not. No, it's not too much, and no, I'm not dragging it off on a liveaboard trip with me. This is my at-home Saver Dive kit, which I should have explained in the video and I didn't, so that's on me. But I live where I dive. So this gets folded up and it goes into my truck, and then I carry it and I put it on the dive boat that I'm diving from that particular day. And it's got all the stuff I need, my DAN card, my oxygen analyzer, my O2 analyzer, and you know, my parts kits and my toolkits. That's totally fine. If I'm going on a trip, obviously I don't want to take all of this. It's about half the size of my actual Pelican case that's containing all of my dive gear. So that's a lot of luggage allowance just for a Saver Dive kit. How wrong do I think these dives could go when I'm on vacation? So no, in honest answer, I would probably just take this, which is basically, if you remember from last week's video, the parts that are specific to me: a mask strap, a fin strap, some hardware, a couple of basic tools, a spare bolt snap, some bungee, those things. Oh, and the batteries I need for the Perdix computer. That's probably all I would take. I wouldn't take my tank checker because I can use my regulator for that in a pinch. I've got my eardrops in here, I've got a little bit of silicone in here. I wouldn't take my tools, and I wouldn't take my nitrox analyzer, because if I'm going on a liveaboard trip, I trust that they would have those items. If they don't have those items, it's not really a liveaboard that I want to be on. You know, if you're selling nitrox and you don't have a nitrox analyzer, there's a red flag right there, and I should probably not be on that trip. So for those reasons, yeah, you know, if I'm on a liveaboard and they don't have a Phillips head screwdriver or a set of wrenches, that's problematic in itself. So no, I wouldn't take all this when I travel. I would probably just take something more like that would go into my dive gear of just the parts that I specifically need. Another question that came up on last week's Saver Dive video in the comments section down below was Harry Devil asking, can you do a video like the Saver Dive kit video on what medical supplies you would take? Do I travel with a first aid kit? Do I travel with oxygen, all that kind of stuff? No, I don't. I would take any personal medications that I required, but I wouldn't travel with too much of a first aid kit, because again, I would expect the operator to have those things. I would expect a dive boat that I'm diving from to have a well-stocked oxygen kit and to have a full med kit on board. But what I can do, Harry, just to answer your question in more detail, is perhaps I'll go through the med kits that are on some of the boats that I regularly dive on and show you what's in those. If that's what you're looking for. So I hope that answers your question. As always, guys, I get lots of questions from you asking about, am I going to review this product? Am I going to review that product? Ryan Patrick USMC asks, hey James, any thoughts or plans for a video on the new Apex DSX computer for both tech and recreational diving? I am aware, Ryan, and familiar with this product, but unfortunately I can't get Apex to pick up the phone or answer the phone or answer any of my emails. So the chances of me getting my hands on one are very, very slim. And guys, I'll review any products I can get my hands on. And yes, I know I've got the Mission 2 computer. It's still in testing mode. That review will be coming soon. But the challenge for me is getting hold of this gear. I wish I could afford to buy all the dive gear and review it for you and just do a dive gear review channel. That would be super easy, make my life very, very easy. But the challenge is getting the dive companies to understand the value that you guys want review videos. You want to see a review video independently before you decide to make a big purchase like the Apex Dive computer, which is not cheap, by the way. I had another review for Maris dive computer that just came out. Same thing, can't get Maris to answer the phone, can't get Maris to answer an email. So until that changes culturally in our industry, you guys can ask for all the dive reviews you want, you know, and I get accused on this channel of being very Dive Right focused. Dive Right are like, yeah, whatever you want, we'll send you it and you can review it. That's the attitude, you know. I'm not asking for financial compensation. I don't get paid for reviews or anything like that. But I need the product, and I'm not going to spend my own cash money on it if it's not something I don't already need. I hope that clarifies it. I know this comes up a lot, and I get very frustrated because I want to give you guys the videos you want, and it's very hard for me to do that when the dive companies don't seem to see that that's what you guys are asking for. So it gets a little frustrating from my end. I wish I could review every piece of dive gear out there for you. That would make my life super easy, but unfortunately it just doesn't work that way in the dive industry at the moment. David Bonas and a lot of other people have asked me, is there any update at all on the Linnea Mills case? Yes, there is. You know, if you can Google and find out this information, so it's nothing top secret anymore. But yes, PADI settled with the Mills family out of court for an undisclosed amount and no assumption of guilt. So yet again, Teflon PADI got away with not facing a jury, not answering questions about their insufficient training programs, and they just carry on business as usual and changed a couple of minor standards that aren't going to make a major difference, refused to review their instructor training policies, which would actually make a difference and improve the quality and safety of training for all divers. And yeah, they've just got away with it again. It's not the first time. Linnea isn't the first person that was killed because of PADI's dodgy training standards. She won't be the last because nothing has changed. That's just what it is. Usually I do these videos standing at my desk, but my desk is such a damn mess right now I don't even want to show you guys. So we're in camera corner, Thunderball, that's it. One of the funny things that happens when you run a YouTube channel like this is for reasons you will never know or understand, one of your older videos will get shared somewhere or put in a post or a blog or a forum as an answer to somebody else's question, and all of a sudden get a ton of views and have a whole bunch of more questions that are generated in the comment section. And that happened with Quick Tips video number 18, which was about transmitters. We're on like Quick Tips number 45 or something now. So that happened, and we got a bunch of questions on transmitters recently. Mike K7453, and I'm looking at my screen over there for the question. Hi mate, do you know if O2 transmitters can be used with normal air? Yeah, absolutely they can. Of course they can, yeah. They're not really called O2 transmitters. They're called wireless tank transmitters or AI transmitters or cylinder pressure transmitters, but there's nothing oxygen necessarily about them. So to the best of my knowledge, they can be used with hypoxic mixes below 21% air, obviously, the full range of normal nitrox mixes, all the way up to pure oxygen as well, because I use a Shearwater Swift transmitter on my rebreather on both my oxygen side and my diluent side. So yeah, they can be used with any gas that you like. Hope that answers your question, Mike. What is the protocol? Says Life in the Middle 55. If I have my own AI computer and I'm renting a regulator from a dive center or liverboard and I want to put my tank pod onto their regulator, is this a done thing? Yeah, absolutely it is, of course. It should be part of the customer service experience. There should be no reason why a dive center would have a problem with you doing that. So absolutely, you can go bring your transmitter. What you may want to do is bring a 6-inch high pressure hose, because depending on what the nature of the regulator is that you're renting, you're going to want to make sure that the tank pod actually fits onto the high pressure port. So it depends on the orientation of the different ports and so on. So I would just bring a 6-inch high pressure hose that you can put your transmitter on one end that will screw neatly into the first stage of the regulator that you're renting, and that way it's guaranteed to fit. Mood Beast asks, does your Philippines trip mean you're going to be catching up with and collaborating with Justin the Critter Hunter? Mood Beast, I would love that if that happens. Big fan of Justin. We've collaborated before long distance. I'd love to get a dive in with the guy, just hang out, see his operation, his setup. I can't promise we're going to have time to do that because I'm already on a pretty packed schedule, but definitely I would love to get a dive in with Justin, so I'm hoping that we can squeeze some time in and make that happen. Justin, if you're watching this, let's make it work, buddy. We got, you know, the people are asking. We gotta keep the people happy. Okay. Predetector X8183 asks, hi James, I'm Gianni and I need your opinion about the Cressy Digi 2 gauge pressure. What do you think? Is it better than a traditional gauge or a digital? Thanks a lot. Well, I can't speak specifically for the Cressy Digi. I have seen it at Dima and held it in my hands, but I've never got it wet, so I can't review it for you. But I will tell you this. Digital pressure gauges in general rely on a pressure plate that the gas is pushing on and some kind of a tension mechanism that's transferring that pressure to a digital signal to give you a readout of what your PSI are. It's a highly reliable system. Okay, it's the same kind of technology that sits inside your tank transmitter, except that converts it to Bluetooth instead of a screen and sends it to your dive computer, your AI dive computer for display. A SPG, an analog SPG gauge, is a wear and tear item. They do, even if you look after them at best of your ability, they will wear out eventually, because inside it's just a coil that is extending and contracting as the pressure increases or decreases, and you're going to just eventually wear that tube out and it'll die. They flood obviously, and so on. So they both have failure points. I don't see one as being significantly more reliable than the other, and it's really down to personal preference as to what you prefer. If you want a digital gauge, it's still going to read the pressure very accurately based on the pressure plate and the seating. If you want to read an analog gauge, tons of people do that and they're totally fine. You know, it's been the way for a very, very long time. So it's really down to personal preference. Lastly, we have a question from GR6945, who's asking me, appropriately enough, it's about one of our older packing videos, how to pack for a temperate water trip. Do I always carry one dive light? They say that they always carry two, even in warm water diving in Hawaii, a main light and a backup. I want to be sure I can signal if the battery in my primary light dies. That's a great question. How many dive lights do I carry? So I always have minimum one, okay? And that one dive light, if I'm only carrying one, is going to be, which is in this box here, still sopping wet, the Right CX2. I've done a full review on this. It's a great dive light. It's USB-C rechargeable. It has a strobe mode, so if I'm in an emergency, the battery life is extended by using the strobe mode. You can clip it off on yourself, and even if you're having difficulties, your strobe is going and hopefully you can be found on the surface. So this for me isn't a dive light, it's a piece of emergency kit. Super important. So even if I'm in broad daylight on a shallow reef dive, I always have this with me as a piece of emergency kit. Now, if I'm doing a dive where I know I'm going to need lights, so a night dive, a cavern dive, cave dive, wreck dive, obviously I'm going to pick something a little bit bigger with a longer battery and maybe more powerful beam as my primary light. This then becomes my redundant light. So I'd use like a 4,000 or 5,000 lumen primary light as my main light, and then use this as my backup, and it's there for me. Then I've got a primary and a backup. Do I dive always with a primary and a backup? No. No, if I'm doing a shallow reef shore dive in Bonaire or Cayman or something like that, I'll probably just dive with one light, but I will make sure it's charged. And again, on lights like this, the little green LED there is a battery indicator light. So that's a useful thing to have. Also, sometimes if I'm diving with my big camera rig and I've got huge dive lights or video lights on my camera rig, I'll just dive that and this light as a backup. So my camera lights act as my main lights, because I basically only use video lights. I don't really use strobes because I'm mainly shooting video, not stills. So hope that answers your question. Always minimum one light, usually two lights would be the summary. Well, I better sign off because I've got a lot of dive gear that I still need to get packed and ain't gonna pack itself. By the time you're watching this, I will be on the other side of the Atlantic enjoying my first dives ever in Malta. So you can expect next week's video to be some kind of a report from the field, either diving related or from the RF4 conference. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen, my name's James. Thank you as always so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it. If you learned something or if I answered your question, give it the old thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Dive safe, dive often. Oh, and by the way, people have been asking, yes, these hats will be up on the Dive Locker store very, very soon. I'm just waiting for my models to become available so I can take photos of them wearing it for the website. But yes, buoyancy, breathing, trim, propulsion.